Shalom and greetings from Jerusalem, Jane. I'm sitting here at my little table. Shabbat is just around the corner. In 2010, I got the opportunity to speak to the mother of a soldier who was held captive inside the Gaza Strip. His name was Gilad Shalit, and he was a prisoner. He was a hostage of Hamas for 5 years. I met his mother, and I remember I took her hands and I said, my name is Jane, and I wanted to let you know that I'm part of a prayer group in Denmark who has been praying for years for you, for your husband, for your family, and for your beloved son Gilad, who is held inside Gaza. For God to just be with him and for him to be released. I want you to know that you are not alone. People in Denmark loves you and are praying for your family. And I will never forget the look in her eyes and just her whole demeanor, her whole face. A mother who was in one way standing proud, representing her beautiful, strong son who was in Gaza, but at the same time a mother who looked so wounded and vulnerable and fragile and tired. And all she basically said was, thank you, thank you, thank you for standing with my family. Leaving her, I knew that I had had a defining moment. I had left everything behind in Denmark as I felt God has called me. While I was in Israel on tourist visits, while I was in Denmark speaking to me to leave everything behind and travel to Israel. I didn't know what God wanted me to do. I didn't know why he had sent me to Israel. But I stepped out in faith, and as I simply could not ignore and wouldn't ignore what I knew God has called me to, just leave everything behind and come to Israel. So that was in 2010. Years later, he was released in a prisoner exchange where Israel has to release 1,100 cold-blooded terrorists with so much Jewish blood on their hands in order to have one soldier released. One of the terrorists who was released in that deal was Sinwar Anwar, and I probably don't really say his name right, but he is the current leader of Hamas, and he's hiding deep inside the Gaza Strip right now in tunnels, but don't you worry, the Israeli military will get a hold of him. He was the mastermind of the brutal assault on Israel on October 7. In 2014, 3 Israeli teenagers was kidnapped, 3 young boys was kidnapped on their way home from school. And they were plainly executed for no other reason than just being Jewish. One of the Hamas leaders who was behind the kidnapping and the executing of these 3 young boys was killed by the Israeli military in a drone attack in Lebanon a few days ago. He was in that apartment together with other Hamas leaders. So Israel took out one of the top Hamas leaders who was behind the kidnapping and assault and murder of these 3 teenagers. When that happened in 2014, I was in America. The night before their bodies were found, I was in a meeting. I was there with the host family I was staying with, and they introduced me to several people. There was one man who took my hands, and he says, of course I've never met him before, he didn't know me, and he says, I'm seeing this picture of an eye, I'm seeing your eyes, Jane. And you know God speak about Israel in one way. When you touch this Israel, you touch the apple of my eye. And I'm seeing the corner of an eye, and I'm seeing how you're going to be crying buckets and buckets and buckets of tears out of love for the Jewish people. I see God is placing in your heart, Jane, the same love he has for Israel and the Jewish people. He's putting it in your heart as he has called you to leave Denmark and be one with the Jewish people and stand united with the Jewish people. It was deeply, deeply touching and a defining moment for me. And the next day, I watched the news in Texas that the Israeli military had found the bodies of these 3 teenagers and they had been executed. And all of Israel went into mourning. The whole nation participated in the funeral of these 3 precious boys. And only years later was I able to go to their grave sites. They are buried next to each other, and to pay my respects. So many funerals in Israel, so many broken hearts, so many families ripped apart by Palestinian Arab terrorism, murdering the Jewish people for no other reason than just being Jewish. All of these years while I have been here in Israel, I have been crying buckets of tears when I have had to report about another Jew being murdered. Yes, it is January, but Israel is still finding herself stuck in this loophole of going back to October 7. Tomorrow it will be 3 months since the brutal assault on Israel. 1,200 people were murdered. Try lining up 1,200 people who was not just murdered, but they were assaulted, they were brutalized, they were tortured, they were mass raped, genitals being cut off on people, mutilated, gang raped, burned alive. It is just unbelievable, and there are still to this day hostages held inside the Gaza Strip by brutal ISIS, Hamas. There has been many defining moments for me over the years. All of this, what I just shared with you, was way before there was anything called Jerusalem Jane. I was simply Jane, and I am still simply Jane, a Danish civilian who stepped out in faith when I felt God called me to come here to the Holy Land. I didn't know what He wanted me to do, but I just started sharing on social media what was truly happening here. I felt God called me, would you be a voice for Israel out of the Holy Land? And I made a page on Facebook called Israel One Nation, where I just started sharing what is truly happening in Israel, because after living in Denmark for more than 30 years, well, I could see mainstream media was not sharing what was happening in the Holy Land. And slowly, I started getting followers all around the world. And now I have been active on all my social media for more than 10 years, simply just speaking what is going on, what is the Bible saying, what is happening in Israel, what are the lies coming against Israel. And over the years, just my heart, my soul has become intertwined with the Jewish people. When they cry, I cry. When they laugh, I laugh. When they celebrate, I celebrate. When they mourn, I mourn. And it has been mourning since October 7. So yes, it is at the beginning of January, but in many aspects, we are still at October 7 here in Israel. As you know, I started the new year by having surgery in my feet, and I'm recovering from that. Thank you for praying for me into this situation. I didn't plan on starting the new year by having surgery, but it was needed. So I had to prepare for that and do the shopping because I can't walk and be out and about. So I had to do a lot of preparation for that. But it went well. It looks like I'm healing according to plan. I'm going in for a checkup next week. So thank you for those of you who prayed for that. But I am really seeking the Lord, saying, God, I have been here now for so many years. And at no point did I had a co-worker. I don't have a husband. I don't have a strong warrior husband beside me, or a team or an organization behind me, or co-workers. I have been doing everything by myself, and I have been so honored and blessed to do so. But as we are moving into 2024 and things are more serious and Israel is at war, me just sitting here doing what I'm doing now, talking to you, making video updates from a broken phone is not gonna cut it. Emotionally, mentally, physically, it is simply too hard. And I believe it's the next step for me moving into the new year, that there will be a cameraman slash driver slash assistant that will be able to help me, and we can drive out in the country and do video interviews and report more in the fields. I'm also thinking about, that's something that has been on my heart for a while actually, to start a podcast. There are so many people who has amazing stories that you need to hear. Testimonies, people surviving terror attacks, talking to people who has lost someone in terror attacks, go and interview politicians. I have a press pass, you know, I can do these things, but I need a co-worker. I need a new apartment. That is the very first thing. I have to pack up and move. So I'm calling out for the right landlord who says, wow, Jerusalem Jane needs a home. Well, she's going to stay in my apartment, fully furnished apartment where I can put my head to rest after I have cried reporting about another dead Jew murdered in a terror attack, another soldier who was killed defending the Jewish homeland against ISIS Hamas inside Gaza or on the northern border. I believe for such a time as this, when I say to God, I am dedicating my life to you, I'm putting my life in your hands, whatever plan you have for me, your way, your will for me in 2024, that is the best thing we can do. And that is the safest place for me to be. That is in the palm of his hands. So I am excited for 2024. I'm excited for making more video updates, interviewing more people, probably starting a podcast. If I do start a podcast, will you listen to it? But I need to find a home. And for those of you who have moved, it is so stressful. It's so much hard work that I have to do while I'm still recovering from surgery. So I also need help with that. So I'm just praying and I'm saying, God, I'm calling out the people that God has called for me. I'm praying for open doors. I'm open divine appointments, favor from the right people for such a time as this, moving forward into 2024. So I believe there is still so much in my heart to give for Israel and to simply just speak the truth. I'm trying to walk on the path that I know that God has called me to do. And you know, people are comparing me to this and this, and I'm like, no, I'm me. I'm just one me. I'm Jane, and I'm female, and I'm not Jewish. So I know I'm walking on a small path of just being me. Yeah, it would be nice to have more people around me as Israel is at war and things are probably just going to heat up even more. So may God bless you. For those of you who have stood with me over the years, for those of you who don't know much about me, just go on the GoFundMe page because it has my testimony, it has my stories, and there are links to some of the articles that has been written about me, some of the interviews that I have done, if you want to get to know more about me. For those of you who have sent donations saying we want to bless Israel through you, Jane, thank you so much. Again, when I post this video, I'll post my email address for any leads to an apartment, for people who want to help out practically with me when I have to move, or you could be the assistant slash cameraman driver that I'm looking for moving forward. For those of you who want to send a financial seed and say, we want to sow into you, we are following you for so long, we know who you are, we know what you're about, we know the price you have paid over all of these years, Jane, doing the workload by yourself. I would really appreciate it. Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and thank you for standing with Israel and with me for such a time as this. Bye.